Hello folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily TA Wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective each time, asking ourselves, what happened today and what does it tell us about tomorrow? I do a show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the Rocky Mountains. Folks, a beautiful day here. It's warming up. It thinks it's March and thinks it's spring, which is nice. And talk about a spring, the markets had a little spring to them today, didn't they? As soon as Putin says that he's not going to attack, or at least he starts talking as if he's not going to attack, markets skyrocket back the other way. Dow's up 227, almost 228. 16,396. S&P's up 28. 1874. The composite gains 74.5. 43.52. The NDX up 51.5. 37.20. And the Russell skyrockets 2.75% higher. 32.25 higher. 1208 and a half. We had gold back down today. It was down about 15, 16 bucks. It was up about 30 yesterday. Closed up around 20 or so. So it gave back most of those gains. I actually did a video this morning talking about it was probably going to fall, and that was because silver is struggling. We actually had the dollar up slightly today, not that much. Bonds sold off pretty heavily today. And oil, well, I believe oil didn't really do much today. I have to check and see. I didn't actually catch that. I believe it was down. Yeah, it was down about it was almost $1.50. So commodities down, equities up, the world is good, right? It's that sort of thing. If you pop over and look at these sectors, you know, I don't show it in this view very much anymore, but the sector-wise, 2% on the transports. That's been the lagging sector. The thing takes off today. The financials get some gig going, right? Financials up 2% themselves. SOX extends that stretch that they've been on. What a magnificent stretch, almost 15% now. Only thing down on my sector board was the bonds. Junk bonds actually were up again, and even the safety stuff was up almost 1%. So big moves, all because the exogenous event pretty much goes away and then everything else takes back over. One of the things I was looking at tonight right before I came on, when I was looking at the ETFs themselves for the indexes, and this one was rather strange. The IWM had huge volume today. And when I look at the Russell, right, the Russell itself, you don't have that. So it leads me to think that there was some sort of a serious short covering probably taking place here in the IWM. But, you know, folks, if you go and look at these sectors, and we'll start as we usually do with the S&Ps. The S&Ps leg away, right? They push higher, they get over a key area, and that key area was, you know, they came back. Well, let's start with what happened, right? Let's go back to this. There was a retest regen after the breakout. The breakout's here, right? Next bar, you stretch higher, but you actually retested a little bit on that bar. Then we get the exogenous event of Russia, the Ukraine, Vladimir Putin. This thing barrels back down, right? But the volume's not there. Gets underneath the low of the swing point high, but yet closes inside of it. So that's a retest, right? A retest regen that's taking place. And those retest regens is an opportunity for the market to tell us, right, is it going to go higher or not? If you come back and you retest the area of which you broke out and yet you cannot break it down, well, that's a pretty clear signal it wants to go the other way. Now, we had the specter of the exogenous event on us, which necessarily, right, keeps us a little bit wary about what's going to happen. But as soon as that goes away, look at what happens. This thing just skyrockets, right? Volume picks up again, right? The only low volume was the down day. Everything else, right? The money's coming into this again. We're stretching higher, right? It's been a heck of a stretch already. You know, I know a lot of people love to draw these angles and stuff, and yeah, there's kind of a channel going on, but you know, I long ago forgot about these channels because of these kinds of things. I'm much more interested in where is the supply and where is the you know, the demand and the supply, right? Because that's what's going to tell you something. When you come back into something, you don't have the volume of what you were testing against, and you hold, right? That gives you a pretty good indication it's going to try to go back the other way, and that's exactly what it did. As soon as you lifted the veil of potential, you know, bullets flying, this thing flies itself. So S&P pushes higher. Nothing wrong with that picture. Matter of fact, everything right with that particular picture, and it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing, you know, in that you got the test and it held. And if you look at the Russell, you know, the Russell did the same thing, and we started with the IWM. Here's the Russell, volume not that heavy, but heavier. Also did the retest regen we talked about last night, right? The area was here, off the swing point high, and I was rather amazed that it actually held it. It barely held it. Volume lighter, right, on that push down. And then what do? Skyrocket higher, 2.5%, big move. Okay, ABCD structures are in place now, folks, and they're in place in all of these. And for the Russell, it's from here, and it's pushing higher, right? It's got another probably 2.5–3% to go. So, you know, given today, we do another one of these tomorrow, we'll be there, right away. But, you know, more seriously, big move, doing what it's supposed to do to tell you that it's going to try to complete those structures. And the other thing that's happening now, and I told members about this today, is now you have to look, you've got nested ABCD structures, right? These don't reach quite as far as the large ones, you know, but they're nested inside. And when you start getting nested structures, you know, that's a really good thing, right? That's the kind of check mark you need to tell you, hey, this thing's going to try to poke higher. The probabilities are increasing that it will actually get up there. So Russell, S&Ps look fine. Now, if we go over and actually let's look at the last one that looks okay, which is the Nasdaq, and this one just pushes higher, volume's okay, gets over with a little bit less volume, but it's over the highs. What didn't do so well today was the NDX. Now the NDX has been the leader all the way up, but the NDX gets over the high from Friday, less volume, right, and closes underneath it, can't close over it. You know, technically speaking, that's a failure, right? But I suspect it's going to come right back after it tomorrow and try to get over it. The volume wasn't that much less, but just slightly. But when you look over at the others and how they're stretching, I wouldn't be surprised if this tries to get over it. Now, if it fails again tomorrow, then you'll get some backing and filling. But I wouldn't be surprised to see it try to get up and over it again tomorrow. And if you look at the Dow actually, in a different way, the Dow did the same thing, because the Dow was testing into that same bar, got over it, back underneath it, but the Dow, of course, is way underneath the high still, so a different picture here in terms of the strength or the lack thereof. So sector-wise, big moves. Let's pop over to the sectors real quick. Indexes, you know, overall, I have to say they look good. Sector-wise, we got the IYT we'll start with. That had the biggest day up. Volume, not that great, but you know, it got over the highs and over the big breakdown bar, at least the bottom of that bar. And when you look at these, you know, you really have to realize that the top of that bar is here because it was a gap, right? You had a big gap here. So it's coming back up into what should be more significant resistance on the way back up. The volume's not great, but this thing's been, you know, this thing has been struggling compared to all the other sectors. This has been the worst. Did consolidate here, now pops higher. This thing has ABCD structures. They all do now. And most of them now have nested ABCD structures. So if you take this one and bring it to there and then back up, it's almost there. It's going to test into it tomorrow probably at resistance. And let me see, the other one actually is small, so that one's already done. That was this one. So you really, in this case, you don't have nested. You just have one on the way up right now, and that looks like it's going to complete into here tomorrow. Looking at the next one, so that's the IYT. Let's go to the semis. They've been the strongest one. Semis pop over the top, and they got the volume. So semis can carry farther. Now here's a huge ABCD with a nested one inside of it. Or is it? Doesn't have a nested one. It's just a big ABCD structure on the way up. Looks like it carries to here. So from there to there and up, right? And you can see the width of this thing, right? I mean the length of it. That's a long way up. I haven't done the calculation, but that's much more than 39.43. That's 4. That's 10%. That's another 10%. That's another probably 8% on the way up. So big move still potentially if this market actually does rock higher. The semiconductors still have a big move in front of them. XLB, we were talking about this breaking over all-time highs, and folks, it did it today. It actually broke here, tested again, and then took off today. This thing can go higher, and if you look at this one, let's see if we got the nested structures here. No, we don't. We just have an ABCD structure up. So from here back down to there and up, that looks to carry up into that area. Just measuring lengths of these. So XLB, I don't see anything bad there. Matter of fact, it looks good to me. XLE, let's see what that one looks like. So now here the structure is not as strong. Yeah, so this one's going to test tomorrow. The test is up here on that high that it left with volume right there. And then of course the highs over here. So if you break through here, you can get some juice going. And if we pull this over and look at the weekly, I believe that's also on the weekly going to be the breakout. Yeah, so that would be multiple swing points. And this has been a laggard. So a breakout here on the XLE, multiple swing points, should give you a 2 to 3 bar extension on the longest time frame, which is the weekly. So that would be, and that's a big sector inside the S&P. Let's look at the next one, XLF. So XLF was the one that was really the test. XLF is coming back into the top on the weekly basis of the breakdown bar. 2207, we close at 2194. So it's not that far away now, 0.5%. We're doing 890 into 24. 890 is roughly 450 times 5. It's about the same volume. So you're going to be pushing, if volume picks up, you're going to be pushing back into this test, right, with volume, which is exactly what you want. So if that actually is shaping up the way you want it to shape up on a bullish basis, and you can see it got over that big bar today. Didn't have the volume, but it's over it. You know, and volume just says you have a lower probability, and we're talking 3 to 5% depending on what you're looking at on swing point breaks. In this case, you know, I don't know that 3 to 5 holds here, but I'm sure it's about the same. And so with respect to that, pushing up, you get over it, yeah, this thing can go up and test the highs. And I suspect that's probably what it's going to do. Now it's coming into this high, the bottom of that bar. Matter of fact, it got right into it today. And that should, actually that tomorrow may give it a little difficulty. So that's 2197 traded right into it. 329 into 616. That suggests that thing's going to probably try to, I would guess it will test it again, but it's probably going to pull back. Doesn't have the volume yet. So XLF, you know, doing what it needs to, and it's got ABCD structures up. They all do now, right? It was all a question of whether they could actually get them going. And this one is to here, and that gets you over the highs easily, if in fact it plays out. And most of them are confirmed. This one isn't. This one's suspect ABCD structure. I'm not going to go through every one of these, but others we have breakouts already, like XLI is already breaking out, right? XLB was breaking out. The XLK is breaking out. I believe the XLV is breaking out. Yes, XLY is trying to break out. It's right there. I think it actually did. Yeah, it's right at it, not quite. So you can see good strength in all the sectors. Those look fine. Let's pop over to the overseas markets and see if there's anything over there we should be worried about. So let me go to actually, let's do my friends first in Australia. See what they were pulling back. Should get a bump. They did get a bump. Not much of a bump, but a bump. I think they have GDP numbers tonight, so that'll probably be a big number for them this evening. So they came into it, right? They tested. We were talking about this bar here. So they came into this bar. That's where all the volume was here. They came into the bar, tested into it, didn't have the volume. It's this bar here, right? No volume on that bar. Flipped around, does a hammer, right? Test into it again today, goes back the other way. This looks to me like it's going to go back up and test the highs now. Canada wouldn't even pull back on the Russian scare, so to speak, and Canada just makes new highs. 14,278. Yeah, there's just no pulling back here, and that's what a cheap currency will do. Kind of like what happened with Uncle Abe over in Japan. All right, let's look at the European markets, which bounced back pretty big today. Let's see if they had any juice on the way back. Now look at the European markets compared to us. We actually were this way. In other words, we had lower volume yesterday, more volume today, and actually more volume on Friday. You look at the European markets, that's not the case. Lower volume on Friday, more volume on the pullback, lower volume today. It's just a different, it's an inverse situation where, yes, they got the bounce, but they're coming back up there. I don't know, it's not bad volume coming back up. It looks like it will test the highs, and that will be the key, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this will become a swing point high tonight. So that will give it the potential to break out on the daily on a swing point high. Let's see, FTSE. On the FTSE, we got kind of the same case. All right, you back up there, you're going to test the highs again probably, but there's just no juice coming back yet. And let's see about German. So the German DAX was the one that took it the hardest yesterday. And they have the same structure as the CACs. They come up, right? The volume structure is the same. Not much volume Friday, big volume on the scare, so-so volume on the way back up. But folks, here's something else I've talked about before. I've never written about this in the books, but these are takeaway bars in my opinion, right? If you take away everything that happened the prior day, you've essentially erased all the goodness or all the badness, in this case all the badness. That's a takeaway bar. It just takes away everything that was there. And so when I see takeaway bars, they usually follow through, and I'd be very surprised if that's not what happens. We see this thing start legging back up here and test those highs again. So, and that one won't have 6 bars. This was a high here. So on the CAC, you'll have a swing point high. Here you have the existing one from prior. Let's go look at, actually let's look at the Hang Seng, because they've got numbers. Actually, they don't have so much the numbers. They have the Congress going on, where they do their 5-year plan or whatever it is. And, okay, so last night we talked about 2 things here also. One is we talked about, I think it was last night, we talked about this retest regen. We tested it here, right, and we tried to regenerate lower and couldn't. We tested this bar, right, this big bar, 3 separate occasions and could not break it down. When you can't do that, you flip around, right? So you get the little ABCD structure now trying to go up this way. I'd be very surprised if we don't see these guys rally tonight and come up here and try to get up the rest of this week, try to get up here and test this swing point high now. The problem it's dealing with and has been dealing with is that there's a big supply curve here, right? Just look at the volumes on these, right? That whole area is huge supply. You choose some of it up here, you choose some more up there. You're going to come at it a third time probably tonight. I suspect you're going to get through it, right? And then the real supply is going to be up above it on the other side of those bars. And so it looks to me like this thing is going to chew through this supply, get up into this area, test that swing point high, and potentially break it out. So I like the structure here. I like what it's doing. This one also has nested ABCD structures, which you always like to see. And 1, 2, trying to make sure I draw it right. Looks like it's from here to there, right, which takes it up into these highs. And then you've also got this little ABCD structure going on right now that will take it up into these highs. So I would think you get here, right, potentially do another ABCD structure, and then try to push up and to finish this one off. And then that will be the real big test when you get up there. But it's shaping up well, and that is a big part of the emerging markets. Of course, Brazil's another big piece of that, and Brazil just cannot get going. BVSP, boy, are they shut down? They must be shut down, because when the markets close, I think it's Carnival down there right now. So Brazil's actually not trading, so I'm not sure what they're going to do when they open back up. They missed all the fun, didn't they? So we'll have to clean that up in our data. Make a note of that. So that's Brazil, and let me see. Is there anything else? We probably ought to quickly look at Japan and Taiwan. So let's pop over here. So Japan. Yeah, this one's just consolidating. I don't see anything big going on in Japan. Let's see about Taipei. And Taipei, we got, yeah, so they go up, they test again. We've also, here's another one we need to get cleaned up. They tested again, had a day off here. They come back down, right? They couldn't break out again. They come back down. This one doesn't look so clean. I'm not sure what's happening here. This is chip country too. So you kind of got this big range, and then another one underneath it. Inside this, you kind of got two of them. You got one in here and one there. So it looks to me like tonight's a big night for these guys. Are they going to break back down and get down here and try to test this lower half or not? I don't like that picture though. That doesn't look good. So Japan, Taiwan, not so good. Australia, Canada, Hong Kong, those all look pretty good. Europe going to bounce a little bit more, not looking so great, but going to bounce some more probably. And that probably leads to our markets bouncing some more as well. I saw bonds trade down pretty hard today. Let's pop over to Ox Market, see if there's anything there that will tell us something. So if we go to the bonds and see what these guys are doing, where are they? So we'll go to the 21st because it was trying to test into the high, didn't quite get there. And I know a lot of people, I've talked about this before, a lot of people watch adjusted data, because adjusted data, it was testing that high. This one didn't quite get there. So to me, it's a more conservative measure, it just didn't get there yet. It's now testing the bottom and got underneath it. It looks to me like this is going to continue to range trade. I don't see it doing anything else. So you had two big ranges, and you're really pulling in this bar as well. And you got a range inside and a range on the top side up here, and it's right there testing it again. So if it comes back in a little bit more tomorrow, well, you're going to test the bottom of the range one more time. So the good thing about something like this, when you see it, is you look at your trend, right? And the dominant trend on this time frame, which is your daily, is up. And so you would think that this will try to resolve itself to the top side on the breakout. But you can't just assume that, because it may or may not. In other words, if I look over here at the weekly, on the weekly, it's a different story. It's been bearish, right? Confirmed bearish and then suspect bearish. It hasn't changed to sideways yet, but it's trying. Again, if this thing can break higher, right, you got a nice ABCD structure set up to do what would make sense, which would be to take you right up into these areas here. But it's got to do it. It's got to break over this, and it hasn't been able to yet. And I would expect that's going to be a fast move up here if it breaks it, because there's 2 swing point highs. So from that perspective, hey, you really want to watch this range, because now if I go back to the daily, when this thing does break, if it breaks to the top side, right, you're going to get a fast move in these. Now, if you get a fast move in bonds on the upside, that's taking interest rates and pushing them down. And usually bonds go opposite of stocks, and usually is what I say, not always. If so, you would think the stocks try to come back down, right? So I would watch this, because at some point this is going to break. Now, if stocks go off and finish off their ABCD structures to the top side, and this thing just keeps doing the jig-jag in here, right, back and forth, and then eventually breaks out up here, right, makes its move at that point, well, stocks have probably already finished what they want to. It's time to pull back, and no harm done, even though this is making a larger move. So you can see how these things can wind up and actually complement each other when they actually do their thing. Gold was down today. Silver was down. I did a video this morning I was talking about. You can check it out over here, the 1 minute trade, gold and silver. Essentially what I was saying is, silver was telling us, and gold comes back today, but silver was telling us yesterday that something was wrong, because silver failed. Silver tries to go over this high, closes back underneath it, right? A lot less volume. Now it's testing this low again. Silver, to me, looks like it's going to close this gap, or at least get into it, get back into the swing point high. So silver coming back in, that's going to put pressure back on gold, and I would think gold is probably going to do the same. Now, gold is stronger than silver right now, so it won't get as bad. Gold looks like it, to me, it's going to pull back into this area here, and I would think that it may or may not fill that gap, but it looks to me like that's where it's going to try to pull back to. That's where your swing point low is. You got nice volume buildups here. Everything looks pretty good with gold for some continuation. But just like we were talking about with the bonds, don't get stuck on one view, because gold on a longer term basis, again, it's sideways and has the potential to break to a bullish on the weekly, which is important if it does. But so far, it looks to me like it's failing up there and isn't going to yet. And given the fact that this thing is just trying to set up, right, this big range, I would think some backing and filling here, because this is not like it's not like people are rushing into this thing. Some backing and filling into the top of this, or I wouldn't even be surprised to see it get to the bottom before it's over with on this time frame, right? That may set up eventually the move that takes this thing higher and gets going again. So gold, silver, not looking bad. It looks like I spent too much time here. I got kind of carried away. I had a question or two that was emailed. Let me pop over and look at these. HOLY was one of them, and the other one was corn, CORN. So let me go pop into these guys. The question is from Chang. He wants to know corn and holly short and mid-term. So let's see what corn looks like. Corn, we know, broke out. The only thing you have to be careful here is that you got breakouts in planting season, and you got reports coming out of the USDA. So if you're going to trade these kinds of things, make sure you understand when those reports are coming out and what they may or may not show you. Corn, it's already done its ABCD up again. Right? This big spike did an ABCD structure to the top side. Nice rounding action. So this is looking pretty good, but what you want to do is you want to find this thing when it pulls back somewhere, maybe into this little area right there. But I like it. I talked about it a week ago, and I thought it looked pretty good. HOLI is this equipment manufacturer, I believe, like industrial equipment. Hall System Automation Technologies had a nice big spike up. I don't know, but I'm assuming that's earnings. It's consolidating up here. This is good. This is a nice consolidation. Let's see it on a weekly. What we got on a weekly here? Yeah, same sort of thing. If you break over a swing point high, you should get 2 to 3 bars carry through. Yeah, struggling to get them, but yeah, this looks fine. I like the setup. So, these are range trade breakouts like this. This is a range trade breakout. You could count the shorter range, which means you go up to there, or if you count the big one, it's even higher. So, range trade breakouts are, give you projections, and that one looks pretty good. And let's see, any questions over here? No. Okay. Looks to me like we're going to try to carry a little bit more. It wouldn't be surprising to see a little backing and filling. You got a lot of economic numbers coming out tonight. You got Congress in China. You got a lot of stuff happening. You got employment numbers on Friday. There's a lot going on this week with numbers. Numbers are going to be everything, along with the exogenous Russia-Ukraine. If that heats up again, looks to me like Vladimir is going to get what he wants without ever having to fire a bullet, though. And that's probably what he was after. Well, Europe blinking, it looks like they have. Have a great night, folks. Thanks for joining me. Take care of yourself. I'll see you next time. Until then, I'm LA. This is and was your daily TA Wrap. Have a great night, folks. Take care. See you then.